After months of slogging through 140 leadership books, I was stunned to discover they all just repeat themselves over and over with just 3 things they all agree on. But after implementing these 3 ideas, I went from making $38,000 a year to over 6 figures as a manager. So in this video, I'm going to show you what those 3 key income growing steps are, which books actually stood out as useful, and how you can immediately use these ideas to make over 100K as a manager. So what are the 3 steps that can grow your income as a leader? The first step is crucial to be able to dramatically boost your income as a manager, and without this, most managers usually quit out of pure frustration. So what is this first step and how can you use it? Well, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, and the best way to do that is by telling you a secret. Did you know I can beat a world-class sprinter in a race? Remember the Tyreek Hill and Noah Lyles beef a while back after the Olympics? Well, I could beat both of them. Even with a sprained ankle, I'd leave them in the dust. That sounds ridiculous, right? But here's what I left out. I'd be racing them in a car while they're on foot. Now it makes sense, right? The only race I'm winning with this mildly athletic ginger body is who can get sunburned the fastest, let's be honest. But that one missing detail of being in a car changed everything. Without it, what I said sounded impossible. And this is exactly why most managers struggle. They set ambitious goals, expecting their team to believe in them, without giving them a clear roadmap. The result is employees who nod along but don't fully commit. They see the vision as an impossible race that they just can't win. If I had told you up front that I would win that race because I was in a car, you would have said, oh, easy. Your employees need that same level of clarity. Without it, they're not going to trust the vision that you set for them. So what books did I read that can help us with this? Well, this is where I get into my reasons why you don't need to read Atomic Habits. It's a great book, but I think people go about using it the wrong way. Hear me out before you destroy my comment section. Because here's what happens. Most people read it, they get excited about setting up these daily habits, and then do nothing. Why? Because a plan without the big picture is hard to stay excited about. Just like you didn't believe me earlier when I told you the end result of the race, just focusing on building habits themselves won't work. If you are one of the people whose life changed dramatically after reading Atomic Habits, I'm happy for you. But in terms of management, I don't think it's strong enough alone to help most managers get their people to buy into the daily habits needed to make your plan work. So if that's the case, how do you make your plan work as a manager? Well, I'm glad you asked. This is where Start With Why by Simon Sinek changed everything for me. Before I show you this, fun fact for every person watching this who doesn't subscribe, a manager gets stuck in a meeting that could have just been an email. Do your part and save a manager from that tragic fate. Anyways, Simon Sinek explained that before people commit to action, they need to feel emotionally invested in the bigger picture. For example, I don't work hard because I want to be a great manager. I do it because I want to build a life for my family that I never had as a kid. Do you feel the difference? One is a title and the other is a mission. That's the power of why. It creates an emotional fuel. As a manager, your first job is to establish a why that your team can rally around. So you need to ask yourself, what work does my team do that really makes a difference? What shared mission can we build around? Beyond just hitting numbers, why does this job matter? Listen, if you're managing a paper company in Scranton, maybe you don't have an exciting why, but your employees each have their own why, and it's your job to find it. Once your team believes in the vision, then you can start breaking it down into yearly, monthly, and daily habits. And this is where an idea from Atomic Habits comes into play that I think is actually really useful for managers. He calls this technique habit stacking. He basically teaches attaching new habits to everyday actions. So what would this look like in a real life setting? For example, one of my team's why is to provide a clean and safe facility to help members change their lives and bodies, and we want new members to come in and say things like, wow, this place is so much cleaner than other gyms. So I created a start of shift checklist that ties crucial cleaning tasks to the habit of clocking in. Now, my team automatically completes important steps at the start of their shift without needing to be reminded. Usually. But I promise you, if the vision isn't strong enough, these habits just won't stick. And once your employees actually believe in the vision, you'll be able to use the second powerful thing I learned from reading these books. So, what is the second step to dramatically growing your income as a manager? This is by far the easiest to screw up, and I see managers do this wrong all the time because they don't know how to execute this. But when I got this down, my bank account exploded. So how can you do the same? Well, think of it like your bank account. Ever had a time where your finances were solid, bills paid, savings growing, maybe even a little extra cash for something fun? Feels pretty good, right? Now, imagine the opposite. Empty bank account, overdue bills, debt collectors calling. That stress eats at you. Well, your workplace runs on the same kind of account, but instead of money, it's actually trust. Every interaction you have with your employees is either a deposit or a withdrawal. And just like your bank balance, you make too many withdrawals without enough deposits, eventually you hit zero. And once you're in the red, it's hard to recover. This is where most managers fail. They think that they can buy trust with pizza parties or quick incentives, but trust isn't built in a single moment. It's built over time through consistent deposits. So how do you actually build trust? By using this simple hack that changed everything. Pizza parties. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. But when I was trying to learn how to build trust, the book 48 Laws of Power actually surprised me. Now, before the angry comments roll in, I know this book gets called toxic, but here's the thing. You don't have to use power to manipulate. You just need to understand it so you can protect yourself. And two of the most important laws from this book can completely change how your employees see you as a leader. So what idea from this book will help us build trust with employees? The first idea is law number 5. Guard your reputation like your life depends on it. As a leader, your words carry more weight than you think. One careless comment can destroy your credibility. One broken promise can cost you your team's trust. Before you say something impulsive, ask yourself, if this was repeated in a meeting without context, would it make me look bad? Or if my team hears this, will it build confidence in me or weaken it? Trust isn't built on big speeches. It's built on small moments where people see you as fair, reliable, and consistent. The other law that stuck out was Law 33, or discover each man's thumbscrew. That sounds pretty dark, but stick with me. Basically, this law is just saying that as a manager, knowledge is power. Before I tell you how to apply this law, we need to have a chat real quick, and this might be a little uncomfortable. If you're only listening to this, I need you to look at me. Are you looking at me? You're not looking. Oh, there you are. Okay. In your workplace, there's what you see, and then there's what's really going on. Your team always puts their best behavior on when you're around. But underneath that, there are real struggles, motivations, and frustrations that you'll never see unless you take the time to ask. This is why one-on-one meetings are your secret weapon. When you sit down with employees, just ask them, what do you like most about this job? What do you like the least? What activities or hobbies make you lose track of time? What's a personal achievement that you're really proud of? Where do you want to be in the next 5 years? These questions, they're not just small talk. They're like trust deposits. They also give you the ability to follow up and ask about the things that they told you, which will just show your team that you see them as real people, not just employees or cogs in the machine. When you start making more deposits than withdrawals like this, your entire workplace shifts. Employees stop quiet quitting and actually care. They communicate openly so you can catch problems before they become disasters. And the best part, a high trust workplace means you can actually delegate more, have less stress, which allows you to work on the areas that are going to grow your income. So now that you know how to get employees to trust you, it's time for the final step, the one that will make sure your team runs itself while you grow your income even further. So what is the final step that is crucial to growing your income as a manager? When I was 12, I accidentally learned one of the biggest secrets to making more money as a manager. And it had nothing to do with business. It came from watching the movie The Incredibles. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing? Get it together. Come on. For the people living under a rock, here's a quick little recap. I'm looking at you, Michael. The Incredibles is about a family of superheroes forced to hide their powers and live normal lives. But Bob, Mr. Incredible, hated it. He missed the glory days. Then one day, he got his chance to be a hero again. A supervillain named Syndrome showed up and Bob tried to take him down alone. and he failed. But when his whole family stepped in to help, something changed. Even though he was the strongest, he was more powerful when he worked with a team. And that's exactly where most managers fail. They get promoted, they try to do everything themselves, and they burn out. But great managers don't carry the team, they empower the team. And when you do, your income explodes because you're no longer stuck micromanaging and you can now focus on high impact leadership. So how do you do that? For empowering people, you need to use one of my favorite books of all time, 11 Rings by Phil Jackson, or the guy that coached Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant to 11 NBA championships. And here's what he figured out. The best teams don't rely on one superstar. They create systems where every player can step up. Because a coach's job isn't to make every decision, it's to train players to think for themselves. The stronger the system, the less the leader has to do because the team runs itself. Phil Jackson wasn't the loudest coach. He wasn't barking orders every second. He empowered his players to own the game so he didn't have to micromanage. And as a manager, you need to do the same thing. So how can you use Phil Jackson's system as a manager? Here's the 3-step system I use to turn my team into a self-running machine. Step number 1. Next time an employee asks, "What should I do?" don't just give them an answer. Instead, ask them, "What do you think? How would you handle this?" It forces them to think critically, so eventually they start solving problems without needing you. Step number 2. Bad managers micromanage every step. Great managers set the goal and then let their team figure out how to get there. Instead of follow this exact process and don't change anything, try, our goal is to improve efficiency by 10% this quarter. How do you think we should approach it? When people have ownership of the plan, they are more committed to making it succeed. Step number 3. Your ultimate goal isn't just to manage a team, it's to build new leaders who can eventually run things without you. Identify who's ready for more responsibility, start delegating key decisions to them, and coach them instead of controlling them. When you do this right, your team becomes self-sufficient, and suddenly you're not drowning in work anymore. Mr. Incredible was the strongest when he leaned on his team. Phil Jackson won by coaching his players to lead themselves. The managers who do this make the most money because instead of being stuck in the weeds, they're focused on high-impact leadership. And speaking of making money, that's exactly what happened when I coached a manager named Abby using this system. She not only shook her imposter syndrome, got a raise, and she landed a promotion. And in this next video, I'll show you exactly how she did it so you can do the same.